In this video, I will talk about where we are in the disclosure process, what we can look forward to in the coming year 2026, as well as new UFO whistleblowers coming forward and new UFO hearings taking place in the near future.
All these military members, men and women who have served their country and have seen something strange, something that's not supposed to exist, need a voice. And the American people and the people of the entire world need to know that this is real, that reality is classified, that the world is more mysterious and more enchanted and more beautiful than we have been told to believe. And that's what this is about. Let people speak the truth, right? Let us make our own decisions.
The nature of UFO intelligence is that it is clandestine. It operates in a way in which, in the public domain, we are devoid of smoking gun, scientific, epistemological proof that we are not alone. And the U.S. government is exploiting that dynamic, which arguably makes it less ethical than if they were lying about something that everyone could see. And it comes down to classification of reality. It would be like there being an island in the Pacific that has undocumented animal species and governments deciding that the rest of the world should not know about it, regardless of how it impacts our understanding of our world and our universe. And so the real call for disclosure is the call for knowledge. It's a knowledge embargo.
You know, this whole thing is a mystery. And it's a mystery because we're not allowed to ask questions. We are not allowed to hear from the people that might know what's going on. So why is reality classified? That's the question, and that's the fight we're in.
So that's good pushback from UFO whistleblower Jeffrey Nusatelli to when someone says, well, we don't need disclosure. We can just watch documentaries. We can read books. We can listen to experiencer testimony. But the problem is, yes, we can do that, but can we actually ask questions? Can we ask questions to our president? Can we ask questions to our Air Force? Can we ask questions to our intelligence community? Can whistleblowers freely come forward to tell the public about what they know about this enigma? Can we request images that are held back by governments, including the United States government, that shows these technologies in our skies or even landing? Can we go to our universities and ask our teachers about this topic? Can we request a class to teach this topic? Can we have money flowing into investigating this topic? Can we have our innovators asking themselves, how can they duplicate this technology? No, we cannot. We cannot ask questions because we live under a cover-up. And society collectively treats this phenomena as if it's a child coming into their parents' bedroom at 3 a.m. and telling them, there's a monster under my bed, I saw it. And the parents are, oh, honey, it's just your imagination. And that is how we collectively treat the UFO topic. And as long as that persists, we will not make progress. We need disclosure.
It's just freeing because I feel like I get to make videos again without worrying about the algorithm. I think audience capture is a real thing and it's insidious. And you start making videos just for the metrics instead of your own personal truth. And so it's great. I'm done with that. So today I want to tell you the 5 biggest things that I've learned. It may not be what you want to hear. It's not just to get clicks, but this is just what I actually believe after 5 years down this crazy rabbit hole of UAP investigation. So the first thing I learned, and I am surprised by it, is that UAPs are a real physical phenomenon. That was the first question I wanted to answer when I started this whole thing. We had these weird anomalies. We had Flare 1, we had Gimbal, we had Go Fast. I analyzed them from a military pilot's perspective because I had so many years and hours using all this equipment. And so that just opened the door. And Fravor really just opened the door for me that it could even be possible. So then once it's possible, you start actually looking at it. And that's really when everything kind of changed for me over a period of a few years. How do I know they're real? And really, it comes down to the people. So now I've talked to around 130 people on this show now. That's military guys, pilots, scientists, doctors, engineers. You have credible, sane professionals with nothing to gain at this point and really everything to lose. You know, these guys aren't conspiracy theorists in their basements. These are people really risking their reputations, not necessarily their pensions, but some of them. And sometimes it comes back to their families. So they really have very little to gain and a lot to lose. And there's so many other people on the channel. Again, 130 people. Mario Woods, another amazing person. I think these guys are just super credible. Once I start naming, I'll have to name all of them, but many people. And that's just my tiny little corner of this. You know, if you think about it, there are hundreds of thousands, possibly millions of accounts out there. And my totally unscientific polling puts about 1 in 8 people have had a sighting or close encounter. So I think most people keep it secret, sometimes for decades, really until they're old enough not to care about the repercussions. That's when it seems like people are willing to talk about this stuff. So that brings me to the second thing I've learned. And point 2 is there is obviously a huge cover-up. The stigma is real, and I think the stigma exists for a reason. I think it's been engineered. So there is clearly, and I mean obviously, a massive coordinated cover-up, not just to hide information, but it's really to manage how people even think about it. And you don't even have to dig that deep. That's the thing. Just look at the surface. Like Roswell, 1947, Major Jesse Marcel. He's the first officer on the scene. He said the material was switched. He said the general made him lie. And we've got whistleblowers today who still can't talk about Roswell because it's tied to ongoing operations. You know, that's 77 years. And then coincidentally, I'm sure, 1 month after Roswell, the entire modern national security apparatus gets formalized. National Security Act of 1947, that's the CIA, the Air Force as a separate branch, the NSC, the whole infrastructure of secrecy was created. It just happened to be 1 month after Roswell. I mean, it's just insane. And you had Project Blue Book, that's obvious debunking operation from the start. I mean, Hynek ran it, and then afterwards, he became a huge proponent of serious UAP research. And I mean, that doesn't happen if it's all weather balloons. You have the Robertson panel in 1953. I mean, the CIA literally documents a strategy to create the stigma. The CIA created the term conspiracy theorist. Then you have Operation Mockingbird. That's really intelligence agencies were caught red-handed manipulating journalism, documented. I mean, even today, we have the same patterns. There's the same issues. You look at the Twitter files, look at censorship during COVID. I think that really came out during that pandemic. So, yeah, I think there is a huge cover-up, and I think it does affect even our sciences. So I think the censorship is real, and I don't know, it may not even be a terrible thing. But anyway, there is a cover-up, and it's not just about keeping secrets. It's about shaping what people are even allowed to think. So point 3 I've learned in 5 years of covering this topic on Lato Files is that nations always prioritize national security over citizens. So now some of you are probably thinking, hey, Chris, that's a hell of an accusation. Our government wouldn't lie to us like that, maybe. We the people, we form the government. But I would have to say, just look back into history. You know, nations have always done this. They've always prioritized national security. That's their own power, their own survival over the security and knowledge of their citizens. This isn't new. This isn't exceptional. This is just how states work. It just takes a cursory glance, open-minded look back through history. The knowledge was the power. So yes, governments absolutely keep massive secrets when those secrets protect their position of power. They always have. This is just the nature of our planet and nations, I think. So point 4 I've learned is that societies can keep secrets, even really big ones. So people and societies can keep secrets, even one as big as this, the UAP secret. And I want to give you an example that you've probably lived with yourself. When I was a kid, I was very suspicious of certain activities, we'll say, people of purported magical capabilities related to the 25th of December. Okay. I can't even talk about it. It's scary even talking about this, right? But now think about this for a second. This is a huge publicly held secret. Imagine you're a teacher and you decide you want to set the record straight with the kids, right? You hold a school assembly, full truth, bomb, full disclosure. Okay. What happens to you as that teacher? I mean, think about it. You would literally get destroyed. You would be destroyed socially, professionally. You'd be fired. I would guess immediately. You would become the villain. I could see like headlines in newspapers, right? But they'd be scared to even post that story, okay, because of the stigma, if you will. And it's not because you were wrong as that teacher, right? You're right. That is the truth. But because society has decided that this secret serves a purpose, right? There is huge social pressure not to release this secret. I mean, just think about that. And think about why we keep it secret. I mean, you've been trained, pressured, scared to even talk about it. I mean, that's the same thing as classified information, right? Basically, you have classified information that only a select group based on age and knowledge level can talk about, right? So to maintain this collective fiction, we have to believe it is for a good reason. That's the thing. And so I think people in the state and the government do believe this is for a good reason. But when I was a kid, I mean, I finally had enough. And this is basically my origin story. I was talking about this with my son the other day, and I just couldn't believe everyone would be lying to me. So I fake slept in front of the fireplace. And I was like, let's do this. All right. And yeah, I got to the bottom of it. I saw my grandma sneaking down the stairs in the dark. And I couldn't believe it. You know, I mean, I thought it was true. I just couldn't believe everyone was lying to me. And I just remember that moment, you know, like the betrayal that everyone was lying to me. And I was just like, it too, grandma, it too. But now think back. So were you happier before you found out or after? Yeah, I don't know. So the point is, yes, humans can collectively maintain a secret when we believe there's a good reason. So now scale that up. Imagine instead of protecting like childhood wonder, you're now protecting national security. And so now this is arguably technology that could destabilize the entire world order. And so do you really think that secret couldn't be kept? Okay, and the fifth point that I've learned is that admitting the truth would change everything, I think. Just even admitting that ETs exist would open the door. Like it opened the door for me for Fravor. And once the doors open, I think the final conclusion is kind of obvious, right? So admitting the truth would force a massive change on the global scale. So that means science would change, energy, economics, geopolitics, institutional trust. I think all of it would change almost overnight. If there's even a sliver of truth that advanced propulsion, exotic materials, or breakthrough energy systems have been studied in secret for decades, then that means our entire public scientific narrative has been artificially constrained and limited. And the nations in power, they don't want change. This is the same thing. Knowledge is power. So who benefits from chaos right now, right? It's not the nations in power. It's the rivals, the rogue states. It's anyone trying to upset the balance of power. So if something like fusion or an equivalent breakthrough turns out to be, say, easier than we've been told. So it's like discovering the route around Africa while everyone is still trying to sail the long way around, right? It's much easier to go around Africa than it is to circumnavigate the whole globe, right? To get to India, to those lucrative spices, right? Everybody wants the spice. So remember what happened in Portugal. And then there's the social fallout, learning again that we were lied to. So it's more grandma moments, more people realizing they were managed. You're going to get more origin stories like me. So I think that's not good for trust. So conclusion, what have I learned is who do you trust? You know, after 5 years, really what it comes down to for me is who do you trust more? The people next to you with the real experiences, nothing to gain, everything to lose, the ones who get hammered for speaking up? Or do you trust the institutions that have repeatedly over years, decades, centuries shown that they will lie, they redact, they'll delay, they'll manage information when their power is on the line. And so for me, after 5 years, after 130 interviews, almost 800 videos, after watching this channel ride every algorithm, wave, and crash, I think the answer is pretty easy.
I'm very curious what the government reaction, official reaction is going to be in the coming months to this film. I do know that leaders in our government are actively huddling right now.
Well, they can't piss on it. There are too many people involved.
That's a recent interview with director Dan Farah. He directed the movie The Age of Disclosure that launched on November 21st. Him, journalist Walter Kern, and UFO whistleblower David Grush have all stated that members of the Trump administration are in talks on how they are going to respond to the Age of Disclosure documentary. So let's see how that plays out, because I don't think they can just remain silent on the UFO topic for the remainder of the Trump administration's stay, and James Fox's event will only push that reality further. Weaponized Podcast recently spoke with Representative Anna Polina Luna and Representative Eric Burleson. And this was one of George Knapp's takeaways from that conversation.
The third thing that comes out of this for me is they've actually kicked around the idea of not having more hearings because they're so frustrated. And until they get the powers they need to actually force people to come forward and testify, whether they're friendly or unfriendly witnesses, I think maybe they might be giving it a pause for a while. I hope not. In my sense, even though they're not getting all that they want, the fact that they hold the hearings at all is so supremely important. It tells the public in an non-direct way that this is an important issue, and it galvanizes public interest. And I would think it generates new witnesses.
I couldn't agree more with George Knapp on that. These hearings are official. They're not documentaries. They're not interviews. They are official government activities that give the testimony gravitas and show that this is a serious issue in a way that, frankly, I don't think documentaries or even news reports are capable of duplicating. So after 80 years of stigma promoted by the intelligence community, we're fighting an uphill battle because they made this topic into a laughingstock, into a circus. And one of the ways to diminish the after effects of that is to hold more hearings. And it informs the public of what people that are highly credible, highly cleared, were trusted with some of the United States government's most sensitive secrets have to say about this topic. So while I do want members of Congress to get the subpoena power they need to get the witnesses they want to testify, I still think people like Anna Luna Polina and Eric Burleson should aggressively pursue hearings, because the American public have a right to learn as much as they can about the UFO topic when the U.S. government is continuing to lie to the public about it.
I've spoken to people who the intelligence community has a level of credible belief that they have the ability to talk to, like mentally talk to some kind of entities. That was a conversation in my office that I'll never forget. I'm not saying that I believe everybody that I talk to.
Before I comment on Representative Eric Burleson's bombshell, I will inform you that last night, Jeremy Corbell wrote, Catch up on last week's episode of Weaponized so you are ready for the drop this week. Remember when Representative Eric Burleson was talking about the intelligence community has the ability to talk to non-human entities with their mind? Well, get ready. So it looks like the next episode of Weaponized is going to go deeper into that sentiment that Burleson shared.
So that's what I've learned. I think UAPs are definitely real. They've been here for many years. There's definitely a cover-up. And there is much more to this universe, to our reality, to being alive as a human than at least I thought before I looked into all of this. But as an epilogue, I'd say I'm actually very optimistic. You know, that may surprise you, but I am optimistic about the future. And one big reason is AI. So at first I was worried about it. I thought it would just be another narrative tool that could be controlled. So it could just be used by governments to control information, etc. But what we've seen is AI isn't like some Manhattan level project. So it's not cold fusion. It's not that hard. It's basically just compute, right? If you have enough GPUs, you build a neural network. Now, pretty much anyone with resources can build it. And so I think we have enough competition. It's easy enough that you have enough competing interests that we will, I think, get to the truth. I don't think it can be controlled by governments. Like, they're too slow. They're too inefficient. They're too worried about security, et cetera, to actually control the AI revolution. So I think you're going to have multiple systems, multiple models, as we've seen, and competing incentives. So we can cross-check, we can triangulate, and now we can catch contradictions. So I think truth-seeking just becomes a competitive advantage, right? It's not perfect, but it's a lot harder to suppress when you've got enough players in the game, right? We can easily see that Nassim Haramein has been suppressed. So I think that, yeah, big changes are definitely coming. And so what do I think that means for us as people is it's going to be a huge transition. What I'm focusing on is just learning to be happier as a human. And to be honest, I'm happier now than I've ever been that I can remember. Extremely happy. I think focusing on first should be your health.
I want to ask you this. You were both aware of the film Age of Disclosure. The one thing that was new to me in that film was the statement by James Clapper, former DNI, admitting that the U.S. Air Force has had an ongoing UFO investigation, a UFO program. In one sense, that doesn't surprise me at all. But for him to say it on the record, that seems like that's something that Congress could pursue, should pursue. And Clapper needs to explain how this thing has been hidden, and the U.S. Air Force has to be called on the carpet to answer about that. Right?
I agree.
Burchett?
I agree 100%.
There are many significant events on the horizon for 2026. Let's briefly go over all of them that I'm aware of. Recently, Nancy Mace said that she wants to get into a SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, based on her seeing Marco Rubio in the Age of Disclosure, which makes perfect sense because Marco Rubio made extraordinary claims or comments about the UFO topic, and he's the Secretary of State. So yeah, Nancy Mace should get into a SCIF with him and see what he knows. Also, Representative Eric Burleson said that he is speaking with a new UFO whistleblower. I'll quote what journalist Matt Laszlo condensed regarding what Burleson said to Matt Laszlo. Right now, we're focused on getting some people in a SCIF who would not be comfortable at this time going public. Representative Eric Burleson exclusively tells Ask a Poll, UAP. There's one person that's a new whistleblower that we have a lead on that might go public. So that's exciting. We'll keep our eyes peeled. And then Representative Andy Ogles also told journalist Matt Laszlo there's supposed to be a hearing coming up. Doesn't know when, but it should be pretty soon, maybe sometime in January. On June 12th, we have Steven Spielberg's upcoming film that will drop, Disclosure Day. James Fox's movie, Moment of Contact, New Revelations of Alien Encounters, came out just now. I bought it. I'm going to watch it. And then also, the event that James Fox spoke about at the National Press Club, where firsthand witnesses from the United States and Brazil will come forward and meet at the National Press Club and ask the Trump administration to remove their NDAs so they can speak publicly about what they know. And then, of course, we've heard from 3 separate people, as I relayed earlier, journalist Walter Kern, director Dan Farah, and UFO whistleblower David Grush, that the Trump administration is preparing on how to respond to the film The Age of Disclosure.
I think it's exciting to see any mainstream movie director looking at the issue of disclosure. And I sincerely hope it pushes the narrative further towards encouraging President Trump to be more open.
He's referring to Spielberg's upcoming film Disclosure Day that will drop on June 12th. And I have the same hope. I'm hoping that even though this is a creative project, a fiction project, that it will still spread awareness of the need for UFO transparency and put further pressure on the Trump administration to comment on the topic and to be transparent with the public so that we can know whether we're alone in the universe or not, which imagine holding that back from the public. It's so utterly insane. 2026 should be very interesting.
Se tu scoprissi che non siamo soli, se qualcuno ti mostrasse, te lo dimostrasse, questo ti spaventerebbe?
Buongiorno, Kansas City. Diamo un'occhiata alla giornata. Oggi è...
La gente deve sapere la verità. Appartiene a 7 miliardi di persone.
Che cos'è?
Se te lo dico non mi credi. Quindi ti faccio vedere.
Cosa vuoi fare?
Rivelare tutto al mondo intero. Tutto in una volta.
Le persone si interrogano. Vanno incontro all'ignoto.
Arrivano! Arrivano!
Hanno fame di verità.
Credi che ci siano altri?
Perché avrebbe dovuto creare un così vasto universo? Per riservarlo solo a noi.